below normal. And of course, I've got broken coccyx from being shut down by the Gardaí.
We're ready to go.
Very uncomfortable. They're here as well.
Hello, everyone.
They're over that side.
And welcome, I suppose. We scrapped the green paper. They finally listened to us after 7 months of being out in the rain and petitions. They listened and we finally got there. But we know that this is only the beginning. It is time for them to listen to us. It has always been time for them to listen to us, quite frankly, but now they know they can no longer ignore us. The Coalition is happy to have people here today, and we're happy to be able to take a breath and know that we don't have to write proposals and submissions to that ableist green paper any longer. However, we do have new demands because we are far from equal in our society, and I would like to invite James to come and speak on behalf of the Coalition.
Thanks very much. On Friday, the Coalition was relieved to hear the government's being forced to scrap the ableist green paper following the oratory from the outcry from the disabled community and the immense work of disabled activists for whom it has caused such distress. It was the result of grassroots activists' hard work that caused the government to overturn this ableist proposal that was years in the making. Although relieved, we know that the fight for disability equality is far from over. Today we are vocalising our frustration over the consistently living inequality while our lives are being discussed in the Dáil. This last 7 months have been full of anger and sadness and fear. But one thing that has kept us going for focusing on our singular shared goal to scrap the green paper. The Coalition organisers recognise that there are many issues facing the disabled community, such as lack of access to PA hours, housing, employment, suitable care and support. But we feel like our limited resources as a small group of disabled volunteers and carers is best served fighting once again for a shared goal. So our demand to the current failing government is this: scrap means-tested disability payments. For years now, the disabled community has been calling for fair pay. Now is the time to listen to us. The Green Paper claimed to address disabled poverty. Well, now we call for the government to follow through on their supposed concern over disabled poverty and help us escape poverty in the best way. Put your money where your mouth is and give the disabled community fair pay. Fair pay for the disabled community is a non-means-tested universal disability payment. This needs to reflect the current cost of living plus the cost of disability. It cannot be a rigid figure, but must remain flexible to change with inflation each year. The current social welfare payments available to disabled people include disability allowance, invalidity pension and blind pension. The maximum personal rate on these payments is €232 a week. The intention of these payments is to support disabled people who are unable to work, and yet currently, according to the Living Wage Technical Group report for 2023 and 2024, in Ireland, the living wage is €576.77. 232 a week to €576. How are disabled people supposed to expect to achieve a reasonable standard of living on just 40% of a living wage? And that's before we consider the cost of disability. If you adjust the Indicon cost of disability status, the Indicon report, which is commissioned by the government, they have these figures. They've had these figures for quite some time now. If you adjust the income cost of disability status for the current inflation, we're given approximately €230 a week extra living expenses for a disabled person, often referred to as the cost of disability. Enough is enough. Non-means tested universal disability payment will reduce our risk of poverty, but will also reduce our risk of abuse from those who our payments are currently tied to. We need non-means tested universal disability payments for all disabled people and their carers. And we need to be in the room as it happens. The implementation of disability reforms must be created by consulting with the disabled community and its representative organisations. Throughout the process, as the state obligations under the UN CRPD and no less than we deserve. So our demand to Simon Harris's new energy government is this: scrap means tested disability payments. The disabled community needs fair pay so we can not only live, but we can thrive.
Perfect, thank you, and thank you for outlining the Coalition's newest goal. Next we have Daniela. Daniela is the person who is responsible for all our lovely graphics and our mascot.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming out today on such short notice. I'm Daniela Bella of Neuropride Ireland and Scrap the Green Paper. I'm disabled, neurodivergent, I'm fucking freezing. We were out here in December in the lashing rain on the same spot, pleading with the government to scrap the green paper. They ignored us and strung us along for months, and now we're supposed to be grateful to them for not doing the worst thing they could do. No. We're out here today to say that deciding not to make the disability system worse is not an achievement. We disabled people demand that the government listen to us and scrap means testing, while giving all disabled people, regardless of work status, enough to meet the cost of our disabilities and enough to thrive on. Disability payments must be universal. Disabled people demand that the government scrap systems intended to keep the so-called undeserving disabled people from accessing the supports they're entitled to, including overwhelming paperwork, endless medical tests, a life of surveillance, and needless refusals before appeal. Disabled people demand that the government finally give us a working personal assistance system so that disabled people who need it can live lives of fulfillment and joy. We heard a testimony at the Disability Matters Committee this month, and the government is far from deserving of a 5-star review and a tip for backing down after the months of fear they put us through. They need to actually address our needs, and we will not back down until they do. Disabled people are done with breadcrumbs. We are exhausted of telling our stories. Universal disability payments now. Scrap means testing. No more pathologizing us. We must lead the world on disabled rights without delay. We'll keep scrapping until they do.
Thank you, Daniela from Neuropride Ireland. Next we have Mariam from Disability Power Ireland. Danielle's right. We were, Neuropride Ireland were in the Disability Matters Committee last week, along with loads of other EPOs. This is not new news. This is not a new demand. We have been calling for this for years. We are tired of saying that we need equality. They need to listen to us now.
How about we try get a chant going? So, what do we want?
Equality.
How about scrap means testing, okay? Yeah. So, what do we want?
Scrap means testing.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Scrap means testing.
When do we want it?
Now.
So, as Danielle and James and everyone has been eloquently saying, while this was a great win, we must remember that we should never have had to do this in the first place. As Danielle said earlier, we should never have had to stand in the rain for hours till every inch of us was soaked with water. This group of disabled leaders from grassroots disability organisations spent over half a year of their lives working and organising for free just on this issue, just to take down something which should never have existed and would not have existed had we and other DPOs been consulted with under the state's obligation under the UNCRPD. I'd like to give special thanks to Keir Doyle, who really did the bulk of the heavy lifting on this. If we could give a round of applause for Keir. Let's not forget the distress this caused to the disabled community. All the tears and terror, not knowing if this was going to be brought through. Our outrage that this abomination was being pushed by a government who are now trying to rewrite history and say they had doubts about it. This should be a source of shame and embarrassment, just as the referendum was. But I'm glad it happened. When I first set up DPI, it was with the aim of revitalising the grassroots disability rights movement by making us visible on the streets once again. For too long, service providers and disability organisations run by non-disabled people have compromised and avoided pushing for anything significant in order to keep their seat at the table. Without a groundswell movement from the bottom, politicians do not have the incentive to support us. Real change comes from the ground, led by the people, and these recent campaigns have proven it. We set the terms, and politicians will be forced to follow. All power to the people. All power to the people. All power
To the people.
all power
To the people.
all power
To the people.
all power
To the people.
all
To
power.
the people.
When Martin Naughton said, all power to the people. When Judith Heumann said,
All power to the people.
when Margaret Kennedy said,
All power to the people.
when Emily Conway said,
All power to the people.
when Tom Clonan said,
All power to the people.
when Blessing Dada said,
All power to the people.
when Jeb said,
All power to the people.
when the Scrap the Green Paper Coalition said.
All power to the people.
There are too many heroic names to mention. The disabled community has strength and power they can't imagine. And I truly believe that we are riding on the wings of victory into a new dawn, a new era for disability rights. Finally, disability rights is on the agenda. Finally, we are being listened to. And we are now going to push to address the real causes of poverty and unemployment in the disabled community, which the Green Paper laughably claimed to solve. We will form the basis of our alternative solution to the Green Paper on what many DPOs and disability activists have been calling for years, including notably among them DADA, disabled activists and academics. What we want now, as James has described, is to make disability allowance a non-means tested payment, which will aim to cover the additional cost of disability, which the Indicon report showed to be between $8,000 and $13,000 a year. Disability allowance is a poverty trap because it's not anywhere near currently enough for anyone to live on. But we are afraid to lose it because we need some guaranteed income support. We are often either too afraid or unable to enter work for fear of losing this lifeline, which at the same time keeps us trapped in poverty. Limitations on our right to work must be removed. We must be allowed to be able or unable to do we must be allowed to keep our disability allowance as a non-means tested payment no matter what work we may be able or unable to do, whether we are going through a good period of health or a difficult one. Disability is not like job seekers. It's permanent. We live constantly with uncertainty around what our health will enable us to do and when. This is the only way to keep us out of poverty and to address the 70% rates of unemployment among disabled people. We can't continue to live in fear over whether or not we'll be eligible to keep this current minuscule support of up to $9,000 a year, which doesn't cover anything. Not the cost of rent, not the cost of living expenses, or the additional cost of disability. Whoever wants to represent us in the next government can and must do so much better than this. And we'll make sure that they do. Because our voices are finally being heard loud and clear now. So let's tell them again, what do we want? Scrap beans testing. When do we want it?
No!
What do we want?
Scrap beans testing!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Scrap beans testing!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Scrap beans testing!
When do we want it?
Now!
Silence no more. Hear us roar. 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 Dr. Margaret Kennedy, who made the petition against the Green Paper, which now has over 3,000 signatures, couldn't be here today to do a final ceremonial scrapping of the paper with us. So instead, in her honour, I'm going to hand back the Green Paper to the government, which should never have had to be read or be we should never have had to read or be subjected to in the first place. So I have my trusty copy of the Green Paper right here. As you can see, it's a roll of toilet paper. We were robbed of the opportunity to attempt to infiltrate the Oireachtas and fill a room with green toilet paper, so I'm now going to do my best to chuck this at the Oireachtas. You can take this back! Thanks, everyone!
And thank you, Mariam. Okay. We're all so much in demand now at the moment. See, I'm joking right now, but actually, for the first time ever, so many disabled activists are being asked for interviews and being asked to go to meetings with politicians. For the first time that I remember, we are in huge demand. And let's keep them at it. Tara, from the Chronic Collective.
I'm too much things to hold. My phone. Yeah. Hi everyone, I am Tara from Chronic Collective, and my other half of Chronic Collective, Anya O'Hara, couldn't be here today, but I'm reading your speech that they had said at the press conference yesterday. So, while I am delighted that our campaign to scrap the Green Paper has been successful, I am in no way deluded into thinking that our fight ends here. This has been a harrowing and exhausting number of years of those of us in the disability community, with the past year being particularly difficult. As I sit here today, I stand with my walking stick. Many of us, rather present here in institutions confined to their homes or beds, are enduring unimaginable hardships at the hands of the government. We have heard that disability is the top priority for our new Taoiseach, but he and Fine Gael do not have much of a track record, with consistently record-breaking numbers of people on chairs and hallways in our hospitals. Even trolleys have become a luxury these days. When attempting to access medical care in this country, it is clear that public health care is falling apart. The neglect is evident in the unchecked spread of infectious diseases like COVID, including the lack of support for those like myself living with long COVID, me included. This is funny. We are forcibly infected in hospital. We are forced to fundraise for medical treatment, forced to leave the country for surgery, and forced to depend on family and friends for vital care due to severely lacking access to PA hours. We are forced into poverty. Ireland is not an equitable country for disabled people. We need to change this. We need a social change, a switch from viewing us as a burden, an issue, the problem, into seeing us as a vibrant, knowledgeable and valuable community members that we are. There's a number of ways we can do this, beginning with the scrapping of the antiquated means testing system for disability payments and an increase of the payment up to at least, well, 500 is the living wage, 576 I think is the living wage now, and that doesn't include the cost of disability. This is in line with the basic income for the artists and the pandemic employment payment, which was originally $350 and we asked for more. As a disabled artist, my ability to work is severely limited, not necessarily by my disability, but by means testing of disability payments, forcing me to do unpaid work, to say no to opportunity under the threat of losing my medical card and my disability allowance. Therefore, access to medical care. And the Access and Equity Officer, Ani is the Access and Equity Officer for Praxis, the Artists Union. We see this constantly. Disabled artists are being forced out of work. I thought the government wanted us in employment. A non-means tested weekly payment, along with a rebuilding of archaic assessment process, is the bare minimum to the level of the playing field and give us an equitable chance of life. Secondly, we need action and acknowledgement of the fact we are still through a pandemic. As such as we all would like to wish it away, it's not going anywhere. We need urgent action to prevent further illness and death, especially premature death of immunocompromised individuals like myself and many others. There were 63 road deaths in Ireland this year as of yesterday, something that is universally acknowledged as preventable and tragic. There have been 231 documented COVID deaths so far in 2024. Is it just me, or do you see a distinct difference in the way these two issues are treated and with what level of gravity? We desperately need free and accessible PCR testing, universal masking in healthcare settings, antiviral medication and treatment for long COVID. Public health is not up to the individual. Public health is the responsibility of the state. One cannot fight a fire pandemic as an individual. In closing, I cannot help but feel a simmering anger at the injustices we have had bear today. The struggles of the disabled community in Ireland are not simply unfortunate circumstances, they are a direct result of systemic neglect and political indifference. Let us harness this anger as fuel for our ongoing fight. Let it drive us to demand more from our government, our healthcare system and our society as a whole. We will not rest until every disabled individual in Ireland receives the respect, support and opportunities they deserve. This is not a plea for pity, it is demand for justice. Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara, and thank you to Anya, who cannot be here today, because it might come as a shock to so many people in Leinster House, but disabled people aren't always just sitting around waiting for an opportunity to talk. We are very often in pain, we are very often tired, and very often, like today, we fight through that pain for something worth fighting for. Our call is for fair pay for disabled community, and that also goes for our carers. So, the coalition organisers is made up of 8 amazing disabled activists and 1 carer. So, Bernard, would you like to have your say?
That's great, yeah. 1 carer to a very strong-willed, young, disabled woman who's going to probably rule the world, I think, along with everyone else. Yeah, we set up Access for All Ireland 5 years ago now, and we set it up because we were sick and tired of our voices not being heard. After the great Martin Naughton passed, it seemed that we fell into a bit of a doldrum in the disability community, and no one was speaking out for us. And all we could see was our poverty increasing, our housing problems increasing, our access to education and access to transport, actually access to society was diminishing. And so we decided amongst ourselves, just a small little group of a daddy, a daughter a great young man in Sean O'Kelly who's always tried to advocate for his community, and we've built from there, and it captured the imagination of people by getting out there and explaining to them how hard it is to live in Ireland with a disability. It began to resonate with the wider community, and I really feel after 5 years of slogging so hard that we're now in a place that the disabled community has a very strong voice in Irish society, and that was reflected in the referendum, because carers, people with disabilities and those who acquire their disability later in life, our aged community, are sick and tired of being left out of all the big conversations when it comes to Irish society. They're tired of having to live in abject poverty. They're tired of having to struggle day to day to get to appointments, of not having inclusive, accessible public transport. They're tired of all these things, but they found a new energy, and that new energy has come from this activism, from us getting out there and verbalising the problems that are in our society, that have always been in our society, but they just haven't listened. But they're listening now. And we're going to hold them to the promises that have been made. We have been promised our poverty will be addressed. We've been promised our healthcare needs are to be addressed. We've been promised our housing is to be addressed. And we are going to hold you to those promises. On one particular thing, and this is something I am emotionally connected to, we have a young group of disabled children in the Republic of Ireland who are in need of vital, life-giving scoliosis surgery. There was promises made by the now Taoiseach that those surgeries would happen. They're not happening. It's getting worse. They're talking about having another committee. It's just not acceptable. People with disabilities have told you what is needed. We have told you how to better our lives. If you don't listen, we're in a year of elections. We are a powerful voting bloc. If you don't listen, we're going to punish you. If you don't listen to what we have to say, we're going to punish you. Our vote matters, our voices matter. No more of the poverty, no more of the waiting lists, no more of the struggling day to day. We want to just live equal lives like every other body in Irish society. Enough is enough. We're not going away. We're here now for the long haul, and you better listen to us, because we found our voice, we're making those changes, and we will hold you to account if you fail us. Thank you.
Yay! Well said.
Cheers, Bernard. So, some of you who have been to any of our protests in the past may notice a very big presence is lacking, and that is in Dr. Margaret Kennedy. She could not be here today, but she did send me a contribution to read out to you as well. So, I am sorry I can't be here, but I am utterly proud of my disabled siblings. I am relieved at our campaign success. We are trying to save lives. Disabled people can spot a violation of human rights a mile off. The Green Paper would have devastated hundreds of lives, and the government did not appear to be concerned. With strength and solidarity, young and older disabled people fought together against this grave injustice. Only a rights-based political focus will be accepted. We are ready and waiting for discussion with Simon Harris's government, because nothing about us without us.
No service providers, carers, parents, professionals tell us what to do.
Yep. And another one of our amazing organisers who's not here today is Gillian Kearns from Disabled Women Ireland. And Disabled Women Ireland had this to say. Disabled Women Ireland wish to recognise the incredible work of our community members in achieving this victory. In the face of the very real distress and fear caused by the misguided Green Paper proposals to families across Ireland. But let us be very clear, this is only the beginning, and there is still so much work to be done. According to the Fundamental Rights Agency, Ireland is currently the worst country in the EU to be disabled in. Once again, Ireland has the highest rate of poverty and the lowest rate of employment for disabled citizens. This dubious record is the result of deliberate, systematic and governmental failings, which need urgent care. The spiralling cost of living is a reality which is sadly all too familiar to families the length and breadth of Ireland. The Indicon report showed that this cost is even higher for disabled people. Disability payments don't even meet the additional costs, and far below what this government itself identifies as a livable amount. Instead of expensive and burdensome tiers which require the poorest in our society to jump through hoops, an endless series of hoops, just to survive. We should have the vision and ambition to tackle the cost of disability and support all members of our community to achieve the independence and lives of meaning that should be within our grasp. Disabled Women Ireland have long advocated for the abolition of means testing on disability supports in order to introduce a more equitable and effective cost of disability system, which empowers disabled people to fully participate in society. One that is not conditional on other people's earning and which does not infantilise us as long life dependents. Lack of financial independence is the single most significant risk factor in being subjected to domestic or sexual abuse, and it is the most significant barrier to escaping it. In a soon-to-be published study, we worked alongside Women's Aid and Trinity College. Financial dependency was one of the most common themes identified by disabled women as trapping them in abusive relationships. And previous research has shown that disabled women in Ireland are targeted for abuse nearly 3 times as often as non-disabled women. Disabled people should be able to love without fear, to make our own choices and to marry without losing freedom. It is not acceptable that our government, knowing this reality, continues to put disabled women at higher risk of abuse and leave us vulnerable to exploitation. Any reform of disability allowance and related support needs to uphold the dignity, autonomy and equality of all disabled people. The government's aspirational and disempowering and begrudging Victorian approach to a social safety net for disabled people, evident in both the current system and in the thankfully abandoned Green Paper, robs society of our creativity, strength and potential. Instead, it banishes us to the fringes, with many of us institutionalised within our own homes, struggling to survive on the streets or locked up in group settings we did not choose and cannot escape. The data campaign and others have highlighted how inflexible tick-the-box approaches to supports, which cannot conceive of people being both disabled and capable, restrict our ability to work and to grow, and in the long term cost our society money and invaluable human potential. It is no coincidence that disabled people in Ireland are amongst the poorest and least employed year after year, decade after decade. It is the result of the choices we as a country have made. Isn't it time we make better choices? We agree with the valid points raised by our coalition colleagues here today, and we would also like to draw attention to the impact of our older disabled population, whose disability-related supports are removed upon reaching state pension age. This nonsensical approach causes endemic poverty and extreme social isolation experienced by disabled people in their later years. It is beyond time for those with the power to enact change to listen to those who are impacted by their decisions. far too long, the voices and expertise of disabled people have been sidelined and ignored, and we have shown through the Scrap the Green Paper campaign this is that we are no longer willing to accept being silenced. We hope that our non-disabled friends, neighbours, communities stand with us and refuse to allow this government to trap us in fear, in poverty and in silence for any longer. We also hope that you recognise that there are issues that will impact you all at some point in your life. This is your fight too. This is a civil rights movement. We ask you to be part of it. Disabled people deserve equal rights, not charity. Disabled rights are human rights.
Just really quickly, I just want to make reference to that. The Minister for Disabilities was out here. Marianne approached her. She ignored Marianne, and then I beckoned her to come over here and address us, people with disabilities. The Minister for Disabilities, Anne Rabbitte, ignored us here today. That's the contempt that government shows to disabled people who are fighting for their rights. The Minister for Disabilities ignored us. Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you, Anne Rabbitte! Shame on you for ignoring disabled people fighting for disability rights! Shame on you!
Okay, thank you all so much for showing up on this lovely wet day, because apparently we can't have a protest without some rain here in Ireland. We will continue this fight, and we know that you will continue with us. So for our last time, what do we want? Good. Okay, hold on. What do we want? Fair pay. What do we want?
Fair pay!
When do we want it?
No!
What do we want?
Fair pay!
When do we want it?
No!
Gerb Markets. Thank you all.
Try and get you out of the
Oh yeah. Sorry. That's okay.
Oh, sorry. Now.